Brenda sent me this card and her wonderful business that she does, and it says Veterans Day originated as Armistice Day on November 11th, 1919, the first anniversary of the end of World War I. Congress passed a resolution in 1926 for an annual observance, and November 11th became a national holiday beginning in 1938. Memorial Day, Veterans Day paid tribute to all American veterans, living or dead, but especially gives thanks to living veterans who served their country honorably during war or peacetime. Today we honor men and women who served. We remain eternally grateful for their selfless courage and sacrifice in service to our country that we may live in a free democracy. Whether you served or are a family member of someone who served, we want to say a great big thank you to each and every one of you. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. President John F. Kennedy. So thank you all for your service and for everyone that has served in your family or whatever association you have as veterans. We so appreciate you. The real work doesn't happen. This is the only political thing I ever say at BetNet. The real work does not happen in those people. The real work happens in we, the people. That is the part of what it means to be an American. That's what it means to serve. That's what it means to engage in our country in a way. Don't let anyone take your power away from you. And I know a lot of times it feels hopeless in the midst of everything that's going on. But just know that as an American, you inherently have the right to speak, to choose, and to be your incredible self. Kyle asked me, I'm not going to make the mistake that Rick Davis made and spend 5 minutes trying to get a share screen up. So I know my limitations, Rick Davis, so good on you for continuing to stay that process and getting that through. I'm just going to talk minds through. Can I read a portion, an excerpt of my book to you guys? If yes, nod your head and say yes. Yes, thank you. Well, 3 of you said yes. The rest of you just have to endure. So here it is. Nobody's family can hang out the sign, nothing the matter here. That's a Chinese proverb. So as you see in chapter 1, you can't see because I talked about my life growing up in chapter 1. I was a sharecropper in North Carolina that we picked cotton. I picked cotton alongside my mother. We worked in the tobacco fields back in North Carolina. My schools were segregated until I was in the 8th grade. So I grew up with a very real sense of not feeling like I was as good as other people or that I was less than the average human being. This chapter really helps us to leverage how I leveraged the pain of such a difficult upbringing. So as you might have seen in chapter 1, there was certainly something the matter in my family. We were a mess, a generational mess, and they had no idea that life could be any different. Alex Haley said that the family is our refuge and springboard. Nourished on it, we can advance to new horizons. In every conceivable manner, the family is the link to our past and the bridge to our future. This is true for better or worse, because as Maggie Sharp remarked, the shadow cast by the family tree is truly an astonishingly long one. My precious young parents, products of maddening dysfunction themselves, entered the marriage as teenagers, ill-equipped with wanting to raise a family rightly. There was no intent to create pain. Pain was simply a way of life and a learned behavior pattern. However, the pain for them did produce incredible work ethic and determination to navigate the life that they were given productively. We were never without shelter or food. And despite the horror, we genuinely loved each other. As a matter of fact, we leveraged the pain of poverty and dysfunction to create a sibling bond that still remains today. I know that I share with many others the feelings of less than, as though I don't measure up and I'm not good enough. I often settled into thinking I had drawn the short straw or that destiny had dealt me a bad hand. Neither of these well-worn phrases, in my opinion, are correct. They often stagnate potential and create barriers to movement. Brene Brown and said, because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic selves, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. That is such an incredible piece right there for me. I want you to hear that again, the level of self-acceptance. A lot of people really have not done the work or the homework that they need to do to discover who they are truly themselves. And it's difficult to present your true self to the world when you don't even know what that is. We present caricatures of us. And when we present caricatures of us, then we have no other means to show up than either imitate someone else or walk around in a sense of not being who we really are, not showing up the way that we need to. In my mind, this really separates businesses incredibly, because if you don't show up and I can't discover who you are, then what are we presenting? There's a big difference between marketing a business and branding a business. Anyone can market, but you have to have a brand to market, right? So if you're thinking about that today, as I'm telling a little bit of my story, what is your brand? What are you presenting to Earth? How do you want to show up? What would it look like for you to be absolutely authentic in the world that you live in? Mull over that just for a moment. I continue on. Renee's statement to me was incredibly powerful in helping us to realize the depths of feeling like we are on the outside looking in. Self-acceptance is an incredibly tough space to navigate for humans, as these places in life, like my upbringing, keeps on illuminating the light on our pain. So we navigate life defaulting to our flaws and building walls designed to protect, which in truth greatly hinder our becoming our true selves. 2020 has created quite a quagmire for us in the business world, and metaphorically grants a bird-eye view of the illusion of control. I read a sign recently that describes it well. It says, can we agree that in 2015, not a single person got the answer correct to where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? This gives me the perfect backdrop to speak about the pain points that come early in life. We have zero control over where we were born or whom we were born to. Instead of celebrating the incredible uniqueness of us and how that becomes so unique in our lives, we choose to focus on the deficits of our start in life. You saw I was born during the heat of the civil rights movement in segregated North Carolina. My parents mired in poverty and stigma. People assume this puts one at an inherent disadvantage when compared to the more affluent population. I believe this is distorted at best and outright wrong at worst. For instance, I live in Colorado Springs, where social economic assumptions are made, like in most locations, by where you live. People that are on the northern end typically have more resources than those in the southern part of the city. In 2018, our city had the dubious distinction of the highest teen suicide rate in the country. Although not official research, every suicide that has impacted me or someone that I know, and which is a sizable number, have been people who came from the affluent areas of town. Think about that. Pain has no address. Pain has no region. Pain has no social economic preference. Pain is inherent to every human being. See, the point is humanity and our outward circumstances are not the determining factor of who we become or how well we take advantage of opportunity. I want to suggest the less advantage we had early on often is the fuel that creates the motivation for forward movement. Another way of saying it gives unique opportunity to leverage your pain. Ron Kitchen said in his book, Uniquely You, living fearless is a muscle that has to be developed daily. As I have looked back on my past and present, I have realized that they're inextricably linked. Each of us has lessons that life is trying to teach us. We must listen without judgment and self-loathing. We must embrace our unique stories and let them shape us as fathers, mothers, husbands and wives, entrepreneurs, and business leaders. Where did the notion come from that life was intended to be easy, carefree, and easy to navigate? Either experience or any other factors validate that notion. No one said it better than M. Scott Peck in his groundbreaking work, Road Less Traveled. He said, this is a great truth, one of the greatest truths. It is a great truth because we really see this truth, we transcend it. Once we truly know life is difficult, once we truly understand and accept it, then life is no longer difficult. Because once it has been accepted, the fact that life is difficult no longer matters. I love that quote by M. Scott Peck. Most do not fully see this truth that life is difficult. Instead, they moan more or less incessantly, noisily, or subtly about the enormity of their problems, their burdens, their difficulties, as if life was generally easy, as if life should be easy. No one ever said that was the case, that life was going to be easy. I was born under really hard circumstances, and I believe those have prepared me for the life that I live today. Because someone was talking about abundance, and a lot of people want to go into business because they think it's a place that creates abundance for them. Abundance without integrity creates an incredibly bad space for humans. It really does. So when we work on growing us as people, and this is what I found, when I work on growing me as a human, then when abundance comes, I'm able to handle it with humility, with respect, and with honoring others in that space, that we give and that we show up really well in that place. It would not be good for Frank Sinclair to have an abundance of resources before he came to a place that he could do it with integrity. And I don't think it's good for any human being to. So when we think about abundance, think about this. I see your 5-minute warning, Mariano. Thank you. So there's a couple things I want to leave VetNet with today. You guys realize how incredible humans that you are. I'm looking at these screens and I'm looking at all the faces of the people on these different screens, and I'm going, what an insane honor that I get to sit across the screen from you guys. I got to participate on a Tuesday morning. You would show up. Most of you probably didn't know I was speaking. You might not have shown up then. But you would show up and not clock out and allow me to talk to you. I never take that for granted that people would do that. Can I tell you about a couple of values before we leave today? Because I want you to recognize your value. Gary Smalley used to illustrate value by, he would give, if you were in a crowd and I was speaking to you, I would just show you a $50 bill and I'd say, which one of you would want this? I bet every hand would go up. I'll take it. Yeah, sure. I'll take a $50 bill, right? Yeah, especially Lisa Wise. She would dance for a $50 bill. So, and if I crumbled up that $50 bill and asked you, would you still want that $50 bill? Most people said yes. Or if I would throw it on the floor and crumple it and walk on it and stomp on it and all of those things and pick it back up and say, did you still want this $50 bill? Most of us would still say yes. You know why? Because none of the things that $50 bill had just gone through has decreased its value. And the same is true for each one of you. When you've been knocked down, stomped on, crumpled up, knocked aside, not acknowledged, etc., it did nothing to decrease the value of who you are. Absolutely nothing. So those are the things that we have to get past in life. You have to recognize your value, because no matter what has happened, what will happen, we never lose our value as human beings. Nothing can take that away. Number two, you need to accept your value, because it's incredibly important that you do. See, here's where human, we get so jacked up. We think once we accept our values that we're going to walk around arrogant, our heads in the air, our chest puffed out, and say, look at me. Actually, the opposite happens, because you're so incredibly happy and joyful that you understand your value. The only thing you want to do is help others understand theirs as well. It increases your servant quotient once you understand your value and accept it. Number three, you got to increase your value. That's the one thing. We never arrive. None of us ever arrive. So we're continuing to increase our value with the things we read, the people we're around, the ones we allow to influence us in all the ways that we can. And lastly, you need to believe it. It doesn't matter all the other three things if you don't believe in your value. I often tell people that I coach and people that I'm around that scarcity is what creates value. The more scarce something is, the more valuable it becomes, right? I know Mariano has old vehicles, and those vehicles are probably more valuable than the brand new ones that you would go, because they're scarce. There's not many of them. But you're the only you, and if scarcity is what creates value, what's more valuable than you are? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So would you leave this talk today? Thank you for letting me share a little bit of my book. Thank you for listening to me today. Happy Veterans Day, veterans. You have increased your value quotient in your service, in your looking out for the rest of our country, for your being there and showing up. There's no one more valuable than our veterans, and I appreciate counting myself as one of you.